sake of time, we got a couple board members said they'd be here just a few minutes late. I think I'll call the meeting to order. Item 2, roll call.
Chairperson Geigel.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Cordis.
Here.
Members Anderson. Sandal.
Here.
Fortune. Monin.
Here.
And Simon. Here.
Item 3, pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, moment of reflection or prayer. Does anyone have anything prepared?
Anybody over here? Lord, lead our hearts and our minds in our discussion tonight. Help us to look to you for guidance in all that we do. Amen.
Item 5, conflict of interest. Anything from
Not that I've seen.
anybody? Okay. Item 6, approve agenda. We have an item that needs to be added.
Oh, like to be added to the roll call.
Yeah.
I don't make a motion.
What's that?
Is that what I?
Yeah.
Motion.
Move to amend the agenda.
To add 13A.
Yes, I would like to move to add to the agenda 13A.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? This needs a 2/3 vote to be approved. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, that was amended, right? So now we have to approve the amended agenda.
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion to do that? So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 7, new business. Dr. Pittman, you wanna run through that quick?
We have filled some contracts, Big White paraprofessional, Stacia Smith, Special Ed paraprofessional, Emily Ferris, Kitchen Aide, that's Jessica Zelfer, Junior Class Advisor, Sharon Anderson, and Tricia Amiot.
Do we need a motion on that, or is that to approve that?
Accept the contracts.
Just out of curiosity, Stacy Smith.
Say that again.
Stacy Smith, I'm just curious as to.
She was a substitute here a few times before I left, and she since got married. I can't think of what her maiden name is.
Sure, I just was sure.
Macintosh. Macintosh.
To repair down in Levy Amounts?
Yeah, in Chamberlain. She's got 3 years of para experience.
Don't we, isn't that new business and then next month we approve the contracts?
Yeah, they haven't returned a contract yet.
Yeah. So we don't actually vote on it.
In the past, we've moved to approve recommendation in contracts listed.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 8, approve consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Open forum. I think we had a name on there. Okay, we got 2, Elaine.
I don't know if you guys want.
Maybe I should start with our little disclaimer. I know you know it, but for everybody else. So open forum is for anyone from the public to express concerns or compliments, whatever they have on their mind. However, the board cannot act on it tonight. The board can ask questions for clarification, but that's about it. More of an informational deal, and then it can be added to the agenda next month. So,
No names or.
and no names of
Yeah.
staff or students to protect privacy.
Unless it's your own. Yeah.
Okay? Elaine, and you get like 3 minutes.
Okay, so what I am addressing is junior and senior privileges, and, just for everybody's sake, I'm just gonna quick read, one of the bullets, the second bullet that I'm addressing. Says senior students who have tested proficient and above level 3 or level 4 in all areas of South Dakota science assessment and Smarter Balance assessment taken during their junior year may start their privileges at the start of the school year. This information, test scores, and whether or not a student has or does not have privileges based on their test scores will be confidential. This is almost incapable when you're talking about a small school. Everybody knows when you're sitting there and somebody doesn't get excused with senior privileges, everybody knows. So, as you all know, my daughter is a senior this year, and overall I'd say she's a good student. She serves on student council, she's in the National Honor Society, she participates in the community on several levels. I, as a parent, have spent years studying this system and talking to professionals about the variety of specialized areas in education. This is what brought me to the decision to refuse Smarter Balance testing for my children. In previous years, I have brought this issue up, not only to our administration, but also at board meetings. It is in policy that senior privileges are revoked to students who, as I just read, I'm not gonna say that, I guess. That said, 2 years prior to this board, the administration went against policy and allowed students to participate in dual sports prior to the administration changing it last year. So there's precedence of us going against policy. There's also precedence against us immediately changing policy when we implemented the no vaping immediately. So to close, I do not feel my daughter should be punished because she does not take the test. She is and has been an exemplary student. The handbook has been changed mid-year before, and I wish this to be done this year by removing this policy. That's my comment.
So your daughter has good grades, but because she doesn't take the test, she does not get to.
She is a straight A student, and I will also say this, one of my complaints about the Smarter Balance testing is, a child does not learn from this testing. They don't receive direction from this testing. They don't receive the answers that they gave right or wrong. There's nothing for them to change that after they've taken this test. So basically, if they receive a bad score on this test or they don't take it, they're punished for something that they can't even correct. And we as a school board, I believe, should be challenging our kids to do better all the time. And this is not helping them. This is picking on kids who, like I said, we're in a small school district, and everybody knows when it comes time when they aren't allowed to have senior privileges and the rest of them go, everybody knows. So that's why I think it should be removed.
Okay, any other questions from the board for anything? Good timing. Okay, is it Reagan and Aiden? You guys wanna attack it together, or how do you wanna do it?
I'll go first. Do I
Could
stand
you
up?
Ken, if want
possibly-
to, it's kinda crowded, but.
All set. Recently, members of the subsequent graduating senior class have noticed that most of the senior class is ineligible for privileges, even with documented parental permission prior to implementation. For this sole reason of not scoring high enough, which is level 3 or 4 in all areas of the South Dakota Science Assessment and Smarter Balance assessments. The Wall Handbook states, senior students who have tested proficient and above their junior year may start their privileges at the start of the senior school year. This information, which is test scores and whether a student has or does not have privileges based on test scores, will be kept confidential. This statement in the handbook is counterintuitive to students, as the South Dakota state testing is to remain confidential. However, there is no longer confidentiality to the student who remains at school during this period. It is obvious that the student remaining at the school is, in fact, a below proficient student. Thus, as a result, gives the common student a feeling of singled out. This creates a hostile environment in which the student is mocked for not being smart enough or not good enough to have these privileges given as a standard. It is stated boldly in the handbook that it would be resolved quickly to the situation in reaching a solution. The interests of the students, parents, school district, and the community will be taken into consideration. Close. With this being said, I request that the Smarter Balance testing should not coexist with this said policy and be changed.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Hi, I'm Reagan Simons, and I'm also here to speak on behalf of the senior class regarding an issue that came up today, as I and a few other of my classmates were not allowed to leave for senior privileges. We weren't able to leave because it's stated in the handbook, senior students who have tested proficient and above level 3 or level 4 in all areas of the South Dakota Science Assessment and Smarter Balance assessments taken during their junior year may start their privileges at the start of the school year. This information, test scores, and whether or not a student has or does not have privileges based on test scores will be kept confidential. First of all, we find it unfair that privileges are based off how well we did on a test that we took last spring that has nothing to do with our grades. The information on how we scored is stated to be confidential, but they're obviously not confidential if they determine whether we leave for privileges or not. We do not think that we should have to prove through Smarter Balance testing that we should have senior privileges at the beginning of the year. Second of all, there were 4 students in our class that opted out of the Smarter Balance testing and automatically were not allowed to leave for privileges until midterm of this quarter. This is unclear and unfair because nothing is stated in the handbook regarding these students. We propose that the board looks at our grades from the previous semester instead of our Smarter Balance scores to determine whether we see privileges or not, because we believe the way that it is written in the handbook is unfair and unreasonable. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
So is that something we can discuss now, or executive, or when do we do this?
My understanding is it'd be on the agenda for next month.
Right, but like she said before, we just changed something midway. Talk about this.
Right, I don't know if we changed it this quick though, you know what I mean? I don't have experience with that, I guess. I'm not saying we haven't, I just haven't been involved.
My experience is if it's on the agenda, then we can change it. I don't know that we should, if we would be able to change it now, but
The discussion though.
right. My point is that the administration has waived what was in the handbook previously.
I'm just wondering if we discuss it now.
Were you in favor of that administration after they waived every one of those decisions? Did you back that?
I backed, you're speaking of the dual, so the first.
I'm speaking of every time an administrator waives from what the policy states, do you automatically back that?
Oh. I have to, if I have a problem with it, just like when I had a problem with it last time, I had to bring it up at that, when it was brought to the meeting, I guess.
Because I need to know, you as a board, how often am I able to waive from what the policy states that you as a board approve?
See, I think probably from the last meeting that I was at, the thing that we addressed was we needed to look at policies. That was a huge, huge thing. And nothing against you guys looking at what that policy is. We did say that there's some huge policy things that need to be looked at. You know, me personally looking at this, that's parents' choice if they don't want their kid in this confidential. I mean, I'm just saying, for instance, this one. So yeah, waiving, but that's where we all came to, we need to look at these policies, you know, not new created ones. We're saying these ones because these were made from, we don't know when. We talked about the policies, we talked about the contracts, you know.
Times change.
Yeah, it's changed, so, you know, and we look at some of those and go,
Well, and there's also South Dakota codified law that comes into play too, is why some policies are what
Right.
they are.
right.
But in order for the administration to be successful, we have to know, is the policy that you approve, is that what you want us to follow?
Like I
And
just
I'm
said, we really
assuming
need to
that-
look at them.
And I'm assuming at this point, tonight, you want me to follow the policy that you approve. Am I correct?
Well, there is a lot of times every year we come up with new things that are coming up that were policy, you know, last year the dual sports things, there's always something
Yeah.
coming up, and I think a lot of that comes to communication,
Mhm.
you know? You guys, and then maybe us, you know?
This has never been an issue before tonight.
Not this one, because usually, like, these kids get good grades, but their parents choose not to have them take the test.
And looking
And
at
they
the
then let-
policy, that line item was in bold print, not the general print as the rest of the policy. It was bold print.
Which was the same.
So when I looked at that, and that's what it stated, and that's what I referred on, because that's what it stated.
Which was the same with the dual sports policy. It was in bold letters, and we waived it.
I was not here,
I agree with you.
and I'm assuming
saying
that you hired me
precedence
to
wise.
follow what is stated. I'm making that assumption.
I think you made a good call, Bruno, what was stated, I would have done the same thing.
Okay.
That's.
And we can
that's
probably
what
argue all night whether we agree with the policy or not.
Right, but it is something, that's one of those I would agree that would be on the agenda as far as,
Next month.
those are the things that we need to look at, is those, this is where there's so
You-
many like, oh.
You as a policy committee within this board has the right to, if you want me to set up a meeting for you to go through the policy handbook,
Well, I wouldn't mind one pulling off,
and
I could have
we
one,
can,
I'm just
you just
kinda-
let me know what date works for you.
yeah. Dates.
Dates, yes.
It might take several.
Right, that's why we said we have a big, yeah, we got a lot to go through. And I do feel bad if these kids are getting like straight A's and things.
I would like to comment, though, there are
Sure.
more than, test scores are more than, isn't the only reason kids don't have senior privileges. A lot of times they don't get it because the parents don't sign them out. And other times, they don't get it because they don't take the test, and it has nothing to do with whether they score proficient or not, or their test scores. But those are other reasons that they don't get the, well, disciplinary reasons too, of course, but those are some other reasons, so that's part of it, but, that's not the only reason people don't get junior or senior privileges, or senior privileges at the beginning of the year, so.
Okay,
I have looked into this too, and the ones that refuse the testing and do not take it, and I don't have the letter yet, so if we do bring this back up, that the Department of Education has agreed that this is, they're exempt from this policy because they did not take it. You can't have a score of a 3 or 4 if you're not taking the test. But I don't have the letter yet from the parent who has it, so.
okay. So agenda for next month, and the policy committee does something in the meantime.
after.
or attempts to.
Well, I don't know if it would be, the policy would be brought back as a recommendation for the policy committee when it's ready. Because we don't know at this time how much it needs to be developed. And at that time, we can place, when the committee is ready to make a recommendation, we can move forward.
Well, that's gonna take forever, I'd say, that we take, if things come up just like we have in the past, you know? If
there's a-
something comes up, then we can discuss it and do this, but that policy, we're not gonna get that done in a month. I mean, I'm so busy, I'm not gonna be able to sit down for
Well,
2
the other
weeks, so.
option is if there's a grievance filed toward the policy.
So you're saying we can't bring
And then
this
you
up
go
next
through a
week or
hearing.
next time?
Yes, we go through the hearing process.
No, I'm saying we can't, we used to put this on agenda for next time, we can't do that?
Not if you have, just like what we're doing here, you have your first 3 readings, okay? You approve that policy in August. If somebody has a problem with the policy and feels that it's biased or whichever, then they go through the public complaint process, bringing it to the board, and we set up a hearing.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna do every time we get something that we want to change.
When-
I just wanna be
when-
clear that if that's what we're
When
doing.
there is a public, complaint, according to your policy, then it goes through, the grievance process and eventually to a hearing before the board. That's what your district policy states.
That is not what we've done in the past. Just like when we
I saw.
added the vaping, you can change it immediately if the board so chooses. And we have chose to do that in the past. We added the vaping for punishment after the school year had started and added it. I don't know where it is in here, I'd have to go find it exactly where it states that, but it does state, I believe, in the, and maybe it's on the paper that the parent signs, but I believe towards, somewhere in here that that's what it states, that this can be changed.
I think what it states is that not every circumstance can be covered under this, policy, and that the board chooses, or the administration chooses to do what's best for the students and for the district.
And vaping is a situation where you're talking about the health and well-being of your students. That's more of an emergency situation.
So,
Well, I'd say this kind of also refers to that because you're singling out students, and that is,
But, so, like, Mr. Corey stated, why wasn't this an issue before?
that's what I said when I spoke. I said I have brought this up in previous meetings and we have discussed this before. I've had people come to meetings and talk about this, and there are things in here that I do not personally agree with, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to change this. My point is this has never happened in the past. And I'm saying now, you can't just single out these students.
I didn't single out the students, I followed what was written in policy. That's
I
what I'm
agree,
hired
and
to
my
do.
point is that by doing this policy, and you just stated that if the administration feels that something needs to be changed, they can do that at
no,
that time.
that's not what I said.
Okay, well, re-say what you just,
It says that not every situation can follow underneath this, policy. And that this situation is in this book.
no, it's not, because these kids didn't take the test, so
But
how
they-
can they have a
But-
score?
But they didn't score,
Exactly.
okay?
They don't have a score, it
They don't have a
says,
score, so they are exempt from this test.
But I think to move forward, we have, or, my opinion is we need to follow current policy for tonight.
And that's fine, I need to be clear though, if we're gonna
It's
do
that-
first, second, third reading, we gotta do this for every single time. You guys get that, right?
that's
Well,
why you bring, that's why you
That's why
follow
you
it
do
for the
that,
year.
that way.
But that's
the
what I'm
handbook
saying,
can be
usually
picked
we
apart.
just, you know.
How can you say that though,
Change
because
this.
we vote on this, we're given this handbook a month before school and we approve it with changes. So you can't technically even say that that's true. Would you not agree?
You have an opportunity to file a grievance if you'd like. Right now, you're speaking as a board member that has a conflict of interest. So I would address that.
I'm speaking on how we are dealing with this issue. I'm speaking from experience as a board member that we don't. Tommy just said we better do it for everything, and I'm saying we don't even do it for our own handbooks. There's not a first, second, third reading for our own handbooks. When we change it, when we added the vaping, there wasn't 3 meetings, there was 1 meeting and it was immediately changed. We as a board have set precedents.
The past board,
Yeah. that
you
was-
can't blame the
Agreed,
two members.
I would agree completely.
And some of this precedence was set
With
before all
different
of us were on here and
superintendents.
different
Yeah.
administration.
But that's where we need to be clear then, you know.
Right, and that's what the administration's asking.
I
Were
meant
we all
ratings
happy
and
when the
stuff.
administration in the past went around this policy?
That's
So
what
what
I'm
are they
saying,
supposed to
everyone
do?
is on, no, I'm saying, so I'm trying to be clear about this part, first, second, third, that's, I mean, that's for anytime anybody wants to do something.
The high school, middle school handbook wasn't, sent out till later, but I sent the elementary, the big white and the tile handbooks at times, so this didn't follow that, so.
My point was there's not 3 readings, there's not. The way it's
For
supposed to be done, that she's saying.
My recommendation is the administration follows current policy and we work on it. I mean, I don't know where else to start.
Yeah.
If we
that
just
makes
start
sense.
changing things, it's gonna get really muddy.
I think it was just a point, that that's what we usually do, so.
Right, and it makes it really muddy. So we gotta start somewhere and reverse that precedence. If we don't wanna have that happening in the future.
Otherwise, there's no sense having a policy.
Exactly.
Right, and I'm just saying, we all just set our policies, and they're like, you know,
Right.
so that'll be, I can't remember who it was.
You guys let me know and I'll set you up.
Yeah, I think, it's gonna be a long time.
And for this certain issue, I don't know, maybe it can be handled separately to get going and then the rest of the policy gets taken over. I don't know, that's just an idea. Maybe it's not legitimate or not,
Yeah,
I
I think
don't know.
communication will maybe.
This
work
been
out
this has
something.
been done, practiced for probably 10 years. And it started because we had a group of, students who, juniors who tanked the, English language arts tests on purpose because they thought that the teacher would get fired. And that was one of the things that, Dennis did at the time to, make sure that the kids would take it more seriously.
So are the teachers held accountable when the students are not? Just a curious question. When you have students that aren't proficient, are they held accountable?
What?
It says in there, if you don't get a 3 or 4, the students are held accountable. I'm asking if that.
Well, you know, from the HR perspective, I think it would be best if we didn't criticize our employees in open session.
I'm not criticizing anybody.
I just feel
No,
that.
well, they're not held accountable per se for these test scores, but we hold them accountable other ways and other times.
My point exactly.
I think we need to move on. So,
Yeah, and I'd look for your sheet, and then that would solve that problem, you know, that was Department of Ed, so that.
okay, item 10, approve surplus items for disposal and sale. Assuming that's what this listed.
All those items on there, the first would be disposed of, the last one would be for sale.
So everything but the last one is being disposed?
Yes. And then we would,
Bid, right, now, or so, yeah.
Yeah.
well, I mean, we'd have to take bids if it's valued at $500 or more, and it's not.
Oh, that's why you have
Or
that.
75.
So we could, but it's up to you, if you would rather, have bids.
No, I just was.
there be other schools that would be interested?
Yes, and in circumstances such as this, we would, put it off. I would send it out to my cohort of all the business managers in the state to see if any other school district would like. What it has been used for in the past is when we had the football field at our old location, and they used it for the grass clippings, but.
I see.
So if that's okay, and if you so approve, I would, send it out with pictures and information to other school districts to see if anybody else would like to purchase it.
Good idea.
Motion to approve.
Need a motion? Or we got one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, so I'm clear on the motion is to dispose of the first floor and offer for sale the grass backing, or whatever the correct terminology is. Everybody clear what we're doing there? Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 11, approve resolution 22-2 tax levy amounts. Maybe you got it.
The budget committee met, and after discussion, and I did send this out with the board packets. What was decided and recommended, and if someone from the policy, or the budget committee would rather talk, I'm fine with that. You're gonna do it.
I
Okay.
think you better.
Was to levy the maximum for general fund. Was to levy $250,000 for special ed. And to levy $605,000 for capital outlay. I would be happy to answer any questions.
So which ones got changed?
The special ed and the capital outlay. Now, the general fund, that will obviously change because of land value. But the general fund, for us to be eligible for state aid and such, we have to maximum levy for that. The $250,000 for special ed, we increased by $50,000. It was $200,000 last year, and that was due to need, for special ed need. And then last year, we levied $615,000 for capital outlay, and we're levying $605,000 this year, in hopes to relieve some of the increase from special ed. I mean, it's not the entire amount of $50,000, but decrease that.
Any questions for Amy?
And if you so move to approve those levy amounts, if you could state in your, motion, the resolution number as well, please.
So what changed on that, this final one?
I'm sorry?
Like on the final reading, there was changes to it?
This is just the tax levy.
This is tax levy.
Oh,
This isn't-
yeah. Nothing changed on that from just the previous, and then, that's what you just went through, yeah.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
yep. That's just from last year's
Yeah,
levy amounts. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, I just was.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 22-2 for tax levy amounts.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 12, approved resolution 22-3, final 2021-2022 budget.
I sent that to you as well, and in that document, I kind of I tried to highlight some of the changes from the preliminary budget that you passed a couple months ago. I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's kind of hard to go through every single thing, but I would be happy to.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of emails, so. Or in.
It is on the word, or the.
Right, I don't get on there, but I brought this so people can look at it.
Did you have any questions on?
No, I just had heard, like, I don't know if this is part of it, like, I was confused, we had a buildings and grounds committee meeting about cans and storage things and stuff. And we were supposed to be brought back amounts for renting
That was
and,
sent to you.
Email,
yeah, but I don't get that on that, so I'm just asking about it now, cause I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm just, as a budget and grounds, we were supposed to go through that, and we have not talked about it again, so I didn't know we were purchasing all this stuff,
It
because we
was-
just talked about it.
It's not, it's under the superintendent's report, so it's not something, I mean, if I could get general consensus for it, I would take it. But I do have updates there.
Sure, but you know what I was talking about, we just had this meeting, and then Chris is gonna bring us back this information, and I've not heard a word, and now now we're buying stuff, so.
Yeah.
It was included in the budget for the portable storage that you guys had mentioned, it is included in this budget.
That's what, okay, so it was just kind of, yeah, put in there.
And
Okay,
then
I
as-
didn't hear, so.
And then as far as the garbage cans, we set aside chunks, I don't know how to say it more eloquently, I'm sorry, but in like the maintenance and the buildings and grounds and stuff for expenses that they come up throughout the year. I mean, it's,
Miscellaneous.
yeah.
yeah.
So it's hard, there would be enough money in, if they were to, and I believe administration keep an eye on it and department heads, to make sure if that was a purchase that was made, such as the garbage cans or whatever,
Mhm.
a widget of some sort, you know,
Right,
that we would stay within that budget line item.
so it wasn't cost effective to rent it, the storage
Do
units.
you want me to update you? I'll just, you want me to? skip
Sure, if
that?
you want
That's
to.
coming, superintendent.
I mean, I
I
just
will,
was
I'll go
curious.
ahead and skip to that. What
Oh,
we-
you're coming later, you're good then.
Yeah, I have it down there under my superintendent,
okay.
but I can start talking about now.
No, we wait.
Chris, called mobile storage rentals in Rapid City, and they only let you rent at $145 per month per rental, but with a $500 deposit. Then mobile mini in Sioux Falls, that was $190 per month, and also $400 deposit. $9,200 purchase with the $200 delivery, $1,200 for a new container plus $200 in delivery, takes 5 to 6 weeks. Eagle Storage in Eagle Butte, we did not hear anything back on the renting part. $6,700 to buy a used, and that's delivery included. $11,500 to buy new, and that's a delivery included. And that would be a 40-foot by 8-foot, and how tall are they? 9 foot.
And were you talking about 2 or just 1, or what are you?
2 of them, and we can look at putting a wrap on, and I know the wrap that we put on of us in Wessington Springs, I'm thinking it was $3,400, but I don't know how that compares to just putting it on a solid storage container. And what I also sent out to the board was the comparison if we built the building at 130 square feet, and that was the cheapest estimate from, RCS Construction, $130 per square foot, and if we compared that out, it would cost us $37,000 to build that storage in a building, as opposed to buying a brand new storage container with the same amount of storage for $11,500. That's if we bought a new one. So you could buy 2.5 storage units for the price of building that into a building.
So it's a long-term kind of thinking.
Yeah, and
I just know in the meeting, we kind of didn't know if it was in short-term, so.
Yeah, and Chris went back and got all of these, and you can see them posted in that file when that's made.
I
available.
thought short-term, so that makes sense, if it's
No.
long-term to buy.
And I'd also, recommend buying them because, storage is something schools always need, and I just feel that these containers wouldn't lose their value so quickly that I think we'd be at a loss to buy it.
Okay.
Mr. Ragland was the one that recommended this to start with. In Newcastle, they were purchasing this type of storage.
Like I said, I was just questioning the comment, we thought of short-term when we had our buildings and grounds, so that's
Yep,
where we looked
yep,
into renting,
that's
so
what-
now we're talking long-term, so it makes sense to buy them.
Now you want to talk about garbage cans?
What about them?
That was the other thing that
Oh,
got
that was,
priced out.
that was just the question about where this
Okay.
come about, like the long term, you know, this
Okay.
was a meeting we had and then it's like, why did we have it? So,
And if, those of you in the budget committee, if you can remember if there was any glaring changes that you remember.
I think we talked a lot about ESSER funds and where we're gonna direct those and how we're gonna apply those. That was one of the big, ESSER 3 doesn't have to be spent till 2024.
And just as a reminder, so you guys aren't surprised next year because of the amounts that we're receiving in federal funds because of ESSER and all those we will probably have to do what we'll just call a single audit, and that just will cost us more at an audit time, but we have to do it, but just so you
Because
guys.
we're getting those extra funds.
Yeah, just cause we're getting and using federal funds. But it's just the feds crossing their, dotting their i's and crossing their t's to make sure we're spending them accordingly, but.
And this, but the same, we'll probably have the same audit, I shouldn't say same audit, the same company that we had previously,
Yeah,
they can do it.
Yep, they can do it, it just costs more money to do it, cause it's just a longer process. We don't have to do that this, for FY 21, this would be for FY 22.
Oh, okay.
But. And just, if you guys ever have any questions about the budget, you know, feel free to give me a call too.
Good job.
next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions for Amy before we entertain a motion?
I'll move we approve resolution 22-3, final 2020-21-22 budget.
Second?
Moved and seconded, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item 13, approve open enrollment request 2022-3 and 2022-4. Pass them around.
What is our enrollment compared to last year? Where we at?
You know, I haven't been able, well, actually, I shouldn't say I haven't been able, I'm waiting for the final count. And what I have put together on the, board files is a projected enrollment, but I'm waiting for the final so that I can go back and compare that to others. We still got 3 weeks for that number to change.
Counted 96 kids in the high school on that.
We have a lot of kids in high school.
Is that higher than it used to be? I don't remember, I think it was about 10 years ago or?
Yes, your enrollment has steadily gone up. If you go look at your state profiles,
Okay.
it has gone up every year.
Okay.
And the enrollment that you currently has is comparable to when you had 3 administrators before.
Okay.
We need to do these as 2 separate motions, or can we do it as one? Okay. Entertain a motion for approving the open enrollment request.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 13A, first reading of JCDE, let me read all that.
Administration of medical cannabis to qualifying students. And this, it is now a law in South Dakota for medical, cannabis. But we as a school board cannot, prevent someone that qualifies for utilizing, medical cannabis, but we can put stipulations on how it's going to be dispensed. And that's what this policy is, stating. It, defines, who, it must be a qualified designated caregiver. It can't be just anyone that, provides the dosage. We will not, maintain, the cannabis and storage anywhere on this campus. The caregiver has to, provide the designated, criteria, fill out the cannabis administration plan, which is, JHCDE-E1, and, state at what time, each day they will come by and dispense the cannabis to, the student that is, identified. And they will be taking care of all handling of it, not the student. And for, when that is agreed on, the designated area, time, and caregiver, then the child will be allowed to have it dispensed to them.
So I guess I was in the policy meeting when we talked about this, and, so after the meeting, I looked it up online, and according to anything you can find online about the medical marijuana,
Yeah,
is the state hasn't even implemented their rules and regulations until October.
no,
So I'm not really sure why the school's doing anything about it.
because, okay, this is our first reading. In October, we'll have a second reading, and in November, it'll need to be approved. So then we're prepared so that on November 1st or 18th or whenever a parent shows up or caregiver shows up with a card, we have a policy on file and we're ready.
But we don't even know if the state's gonna do it, if they're gonna demand it in our schools at this point.
So
The school districts have to be ready. It is a legal,
I don't know how you get ready
standing.
before you know the guidelines are.
This is the guidelines. These guidelines have come down from the state.
Can I speak on that? So I actually reached out to someone who is on the interim policy of this, who directed me to the individuals who are on the school, who it will directly affect the schools. And what I have been told is they have not. There is nothing finished as far as what the schools will be handed. Guidelines for the schools, they have not finished any of it.
Okay. Well,
That's what I was told.
This is your first reading, okay? In October, I'll be bringing it back for the second reading. In November, you as a board decide what you wanna do with it. I can only bring you the recommendations that have been handed to superintendents throughout the state.
Is there a copy of this on,
It's all on the board files, yep, you'll see policies.
So being a first reading, obviously there's no action on that.
We take no action right now, and yes, I would highly recommend that you do more research and make a decision that this will be district policy.
So they handed this down to you and they don't have anything finalized. So what if they come back and change something and we have to come back and change this? And it's technically
Well, she said
starts
we're
all
not
over.
voting on it tonight.
Right,
She
but
just
I'm
said
saying,
it's out.
if the policy committee of the state changes this,
Right.
then we have to start
To
all over and
reread.
it's 3 more
I see.
readings. That's why,
It's not a whole new policy though, it's a change in what we have. So that's not gonna be a whole new it's not gonna be a whole new policy. It's still gonna be under that number. It's just gonna be edited, and that's why we have 3 readings in case, other circumstances come up.
There's a few minor changes.
If it's drastically changed, or they change the call numbers or the file number, then that's something different, I think.
And I think to be clear, I mean, for other people too, it sounds like it's in our best interest to follow this. This is not, I mean, it's not law that we have to put this into our school.
It will
correct?
be taking effect on November 18th.
Right, but I'm just saying, isn't that true? I mean, we'd get some reprimands and possible things if we didn't wanna do this policy.
You can force them to leave the school premises to take.
I was just meaning in general, I'm just talking, so, I mean, this is a new thing for some.
Well, what's interesting is I started working on the accreditation review for this school, and this policy is already one of the things that is listed that we have to upload.
Sure.
And so I was kinda surprised by that, because, you know, it just, these recommendations just came out a month ago.
And that, but that's what I'm trying to say there, I mean, just for future reference, when we get
There-
further into this is a recommendation, this is not
Yeah,
something
this
we
is,
have. Yeah,
yeah,
There's a lot of moving parts
Yeah.
in this, like at the state level and.
so,
yeah.
Basically, they're building a big blanket policy to protect us if it goes through, and
Absolutely.
if they go and change it, then we're gonna need to change this.
On November 18th, if we have nothing, and someone comes, and we're not following what is assigned in the law, then we are liable.
But you never know when the law's gonna come through even. That's what's so comical
The
to me,
law
it's
was
like,
passed last fall.
but they don't have the guidelines or anything set up is my point, so.
And if they don't meet their deadline, then there's people in this state that are gonna be upset about it. And superintendents ask, what if we refuse to allow it? Well, you can be that school that goes to court and spends quite a bit of time in court fighting why a public school is not gonna follow a state law. So I do highly recommend that you research this more. But I'm bringing this to you for its first reading to protect you in this district for what could happen. This law passed last fall. And the governor of South Dakota has got a lot of pressure because she is stalling this out till November 18th. They wanted it in July 1st. So it comes down to, do I agree? My personal beliefs, I have to put them aside because I have to do what's best for this district. Any other questions?
Sounds like we got some reading to do.
And there's no
Lots to
prescription
read.
for this either, I'd like you to know. And it's a non-smokable form.
There's no prescription for it.
There's no prescription, you just get a card because you have identified a list of conditions. Okay?
Okay. Ready to move on?
And then alternative instruction, these are homeschool students. They must identify what school district they're, homeschooling, in. And so that is the big change there. And this is side by side with the IGDK, participation of alternate instruction students, and that goes with, homeschool students participating in school activities. It wasn't, you know, we've had homeschool students participate in our junior high, activities, but then when it got to a state level, this involves South Dakota High School Activities Association and the eligibility of those athletes in what district that they're in. Okay, so they must identify the school district that they're in. And then if it is the Wall School District, they can participate in our activities. They can't go to Phillip, they can't go to New Albany. Unless they open enroll into that school district, then it's those activities. So it's the enrollment, the identification of the school district will prevent, an open enrolled student to just bounce around to school districts. Any questions on that? Okay, second reading will be next month.
So that's 3 separate policies then.
Well, yes, but one of them has, application to it.
Right. 14, approve strategic plan.
Okay, I told you last month that I would go through the strategic plan. 3 weeks ago, I sent it out to you on changes that I have made. I haven't heard anything, but I feel a strategic plan is very important for whether it be a school, a business, a church, any organization. It provides focus. And one thing I noticed in the stakeholder report from last spring was that many teachers feel like they're on their own with no goal or focus. And with that being brought through on your stakeholders report, I feel it is very important that if we don't approve this strategic plan, then tell me what direction to go to find a strategic plan so this district can have focus. I can tell you in my experience as a teacher here, we had a strategic plan and we followed and we discussed and we worked out, and student achievement increased. Since that strategic plan is expired and not held in view, that hasn't been the case. So.
And this is something you three were able to kind of.
Yes, I took it to
take it from where we were
and I'll go through the things that I changed here. Let's see here, it's probably better if I went this way. Okay. What I put in here, actually this is green, so that was Mr. Sikora. Put that in. A uniform discipline grid, consistency for staff and students. Teach like a champion model, that was what Mr. Ragland utilized for his in-service with his 6 through 12 staff, and the K-5 staff will develop and carry out consequences that are appropriate for student development. Then the next step would be a district-wide staff development plan that we created to address all district needs in the comprehensive needs assessment and school improvement plan. The school improvement plan last update was in 2019, or was it right before COVID? And so that does need to be updated but both Mr. Ragland and Mr. Sikora are going to go through the comprehensive needs assessment process. This is something that I did in Wessington Springs. It looks at the teacher effectiveness, the culture, and the communications within your district, and develop an action plan to address those needs. So with this strategic plan in place, if approved tonight, will be set up for that comprehensive needs plan to be started. It will start one way or the other. Communications was the other goal, and I took out where it said advisory council, because my style of leadership, I like to work with an administrative team. I meet with my administrative team at 2:30. It might end up being 3 o'clock because of early release, but I meet with them on a weekly basis to communicate so they can go out and communicate with their constituency. Then I proceeded to take out quite a bit of language that dealt with the grievance and complaint policy, because it describes what policy you have, and I felt that it was taking up space and making it, in becoming the focus of a strategic plan. I feel that's not the place for it unless you're looking to really develop a knockout grievance policy.
No, you're saying it there, and that's the guts of it, where someone will look at it.
Yeah, go look at it. Yeah.
So you're saying that only the teachers could come up with the grievance, not the parents?
What now? Where? Personnel?
Says teachers will communicate effectively in a timely manner.
So
with all parents.
No parents.
Then you cross out, no parents or students' issues will reach the administration unless first addressed by the teacher.
That's in the grievance policy that's under district, that's what I took out. That doesn't mean
Still
that,
policy.
that I'm pushing it aside because I am very much behind the grievance policy. I like things in writing, obviously. But I just don't feel that it needs to be described in your strategic plan.
I see.
It's still very much alive and well. Okay, and timelines are important. If it says in your district policy 10 days, that means 10 days. Administration will communicate, in a timely, and both Mr. Ragland and Mr. Sikora have weekly meetings, set up with their staff, and as well, as Mr. Bissett with his staff. And technology expectations, we brought them out in July. So they are already set up, and they were brought through, and the basis for our in-service in September. August, yeah, both months. Okay, so we have started that process. And this was in here before. This school board members will redirect parent issues back to teachers, staff, or administration. Again, that goes back to the chain of command in the district policy. The other changes that dealt with facilities, I took out that the superintendent will evaluate there was stuff about the head custodian in the evaluation. And the reason I took it out is, first of all, it's not really, I don't know the connection between that and facilities to start with. But across the board, we're looking at, consistent evaluations. You know, we set up my evaluation last month. I have the principals set up with Frontline to have consistent evaluations of the staff, and so forth. So I took that out, so we're not talking about evaluation of one particular position or positions. But there'll still be evaluations going on throughout the district. And then we have the 5-year plan, landscaping and so forth. Then you have here, whoops. You have here number 7. May visit with an architect firm, I can't say the word very well, sorry, for assistance with the master plan. And master plan is something that you look at all of your facilities, all your land structures, and divide it as a plan so that you still have plenty of parking, so it is a plan that will meet your needs, as well as be built the most efficient and effective manner.
I do have to say something about that, and I know we're going into it next time, and I've kind of discussed this, which I think we all need to as a whole. And I don't know if it matters if it's saying it like that, I'm just bringing it up, cause we're gonna get into the building. So I don't know if I say it, it's cause we're specifically saying a couple of the egg, the bus. You know, I'm gonna be, when we get to that point, that's why I don't wanna approve this when it's saying that specifically.
Just says such as.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't, so do you want me to wait then, or?
You could just take out, leave it as master plan or layout, and then take out the
Right.
parentheses part, take that out and leave the rest of it.
So, this is the PDF, so what's in abbreviations?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, what's the point of, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And I'll save you the next.
I can do that.
Okay, thanks.
I just can't do it on PDF. That's the end, that's what you had, and that's what I revised.
And the strategic plan's a living document, right? I mean, it's
Well,
moving pieces or.
It's got moving pieces to it, and the next step that I would take, is to develop committees to meet these. For the academics, of course, we have the comprehensive needs assessment, And that is something Mr. Ragland and Mr. Sikora are going to put together their teams for that process. And I'm also involved with the comprehensive local, needs assessment, and that deals with CTE, and I'll be working with Ms. Sundahl and Ms. Holtzbach on that. So that committee can develop those action plans for that. Communication, that would be something that I would be looking for members of a communications team to put together the plan so that we can encompass all communications at all levels in this district. This is a committee that at Washington Springs, they brought it up that some kids, some families were Spanish. And they put things in Spanish as well as English. That would have been something I overlooked on myself, so I feel that developing a communications committee is vital. Facilities, we have a buildings and grounds committee already, and we are talking about some of this. Chris is very good at, developing spreadsheets and is starting to work on a, capital outlay plan that, it needs to be worked on and built. The next thing you'll see, I am recommending an architect firm. And I have listed on the, Wall School Board's files, a number of architects that I have been in contact, visiting with, looking for quotes, what services they provide. So that would incorporate that committee. Facilities, head of maintenance, and I had, Lex Heathershaw there as the activities director.
Any questions? Sound like a start? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the strategic plan as presented with the correction.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 15, discuss and approve architect.
Okay, I did give you a list of architects on that folder, and I have met with some of them have been recommended to me. What was it, RCS Construction that I met with, he gave me recommendations, and also, where is that? Oh, here we go. Just architects that have worked, with this school district in the past. And so that's where, and every architect is different as far as how they charge. Some of them do it by the overall cost of the project, some of them do it by the difficulty and who they have on staff, whether they have a mechanical engineer on staff or whether they gotta hire out. So I can't tell you and bring you exact costs, but I can recommend, what is it, JLR Architects. Jim Holbeck is the representative. He was a superintendent at Harrisburg. When Harrisburg was the fastest growing school district in the state of South Dakota, he built several buildings. And he came out and he met with Chris and I, and we walked around the grounds and looked at some things. He is willing to come and start working with us. Do some bubble drawings, which is basically some copy and paste some of the projects they've done in the past. Architecture also requires quite a bit of surveying, soil sampling, and so forth. Some of you may be very familiar with the process.
I just want, before we get too far this way, I know I talked about it the other day, and I think as a board, we need to seriously have this discussion. When we started this, our building was to replace the powerhouse. That's what our purpose was, because that's where the need was. I mean, I remember going over there because that's what we needed to do. Spencer, you were with me and Josh? That was our need. I'm having a concern because this is the direction we're going with this building, and nothing against what you're bringing, I'm just saying, so that's the building, I guess, the building that we were starting to talk about is to replace the powerhouse. You know, that's what this is what we're leading to, and that's why we were talking, the architects are starting to. My concern is now that we are going away from that building. I mean, we're talking about an architect for a building, I mean, we were going on that side and, you know, gonna create this room and space for these people to have practices and for football players to be able to change over here instead of going over there. Now, from my understanding, we're talking about a building over on this other side that has none of that.
We're not, I am.
That's what I'm saying, I don't wanna get off track thinking we're hiring we all are under the assumption our architect is for what we've been going forward with.
I'm recommending, and like it said in the strategic plan, an architect to put together a master plan.
Right, Pandy, but I'm just saying, you want, I mean, true, right, you want an egg class,
Yeah,
you want a bus bar, you aren't thinking of that.
The powerhouse?
I think the powerhouse was just a piece of the puzzle.
Right, no, I know that, but I wanna be clear when we're hiring this, what we're talking about, because we went through months of figuring out what this is that we were, directing towards.
I think we have lots of need to, we gotta put
Right,
it in order,
that's what
we need first.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm recommending a master plan established by an architect. The only reason that I'm making a recommendation to hire an architect instead, yes, we have this free option, but if we hired an architect today and we decided there was something that we did wanna construct next summer in preparation for the 22-23 school year, then we need to start the process now.
Right, but I
Okay.
just wanted to be clear that that's the direction that, when I
I will-
voted to go forward, that
Yes.
building is the direction I voted for. I wanna be clear on that.
Yes,
I'm
I
not
agree.
voting to hire an architect for an A classroom and a bus barn. I just
I'm
wanted
not-
to be 100% clear, cause I don't think it's fair for me to go
I-
forward with something I already voted to go forward with.
I am presenting to you options on an architect.
Yep.
And I'm recommending you hire the architect. And I'm recommending the architect starts looking at specs, we start looking at ideas, and we develop a plan. So if we wanted to build next summer, we need to have those specs developed and go to bid by the end of November, so that we have the best option for costs, okay? If you do not wanna hire an architect right now, and you wanna see what there is for free options here, that's fine. But I'm just saying, we will not be able to go out to bid during that window of opportunity when you can get the best bids and have some construction next summer.
I get that.
And
My
we'll
thing
put
is,
it back
how are
in
we
here.
gonna go to an architect and say, this is what we want? What do we want? We already know what we wanted,
We
and then
don't
you
know
have a
what we
different
can do
idea.
because we don't even know the soil or whichever.
We don't know what we can afford.
Well, then that's just it too, we had a budget too, so I'm
We
just
don't
saying.
know
we-
gym for $2.5 million, and that's what we've supposedly said we could spend, so, I mean, we gotta figure out how we can strategically get.
And
If
what
we
I,
put money in different spots, then we're not gonna be able to put it there.
I'm proposing a plan that we look at what is listed and desired and what, you have student enrollments and 20 students in a building construction class. That's a little shop, and that was something that has been in discussion for a long time, and that's where it's coming from, right here. Because I've worked in that environment, and I'm baffled because we have $926,000 being put out to our city for an industrial park, and we don't even have facilities to produce the students to be a part of that.
But I thought when we set out goals and we talked about this when you were hired, and I was under the understanding that we were holding off for 2 reasons. This is a completely new administration, we have a completely new setup, and number 2, the cost of what we had for supplies. My understanding, we were going to hold off until we had something final set up and in place. Now, here we are 3 months into the year and we're talking about hiring an architect.
I'm recommending.
You're recommending for approval that we hire an architect.
And
When we discussed the outlines of goals for this year's administration, that's where I I look at this and I'm like, where did we jump into discuss and approve an architect when we, not even 3 months ago, discussed what our goals were? I believe it was you or the people that we hired asked about the building, and we said, no, we need to hold off with the mess that we are in, give it a year, see where prices are at, and then look at it.
If you don't wanna hire an architect tonight, that's fine.
Well, I'm just saying that was discussed when you were hired.
Okay,
So my
I'm just showing you with this chart that you have some pretty high enrollments. And then when you go to look at what your course enrollments are, the number of students.
But
I'm
this
not
is my
worried-
question now, are you proposing a classroom? This is where
We're not doing anything, we're trying to make,
When we hire
an
an architect,
architect
we do
just
have
is
to-
gonna give you some plan, I mean, we can say no, we don't have to
Right,
build.
it costs a lot, so I just want to be
Well, that's
clear
the
on
only
it.
way you can get the ball rolling, you guys
Spencer,
don't
being
act like
clear
you wanna
on
get the ball
vision.
rolling.
Spencer, you're the one that wanted the gym so bad, I'm trying to stick up for where our direction
Oh,
is
I
going,
want
is all I'm
some-
doing.
Some
If the-
improvements in our facilities, and you
Absolutely.
gotta start somewhere.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
we can't, we almost had an architect when Dan quit, and things fizzled, I mean, that's the only way we can get the ball rolling.
That's where we were at, was the last time we were at, was figuring out what architect, that's exactly where we stopped.
He was
We just
gonna
talked about that.
contact one.
Was just about what the
And
prices were.
that's all we're doing
where
here,
were.
we don't have to build anything, we just gotta get the ball rolling.
I do wanna build something, we're going so far directions.
Well, what, I guess I'm confused, what hurts to develop a master plan or have an architect show us our property boundaries and the building space we have and actual square footage we have, so we can help make that decision.
There's
where we
nothing
can
with
go.
it, I was just saying, cause egg and classes.
I'll
and
tell you,
doc-
I'd like to see an ag building built.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. is
But that's just me.
different than-
But you should have a planning meeting and sit down with the entire
Yeah.
board and say,
Yeah.
this is the
Before we
direction.
come.
Not just bring it to a school board meeting and say, hey,
That's why I wanna be clear
approve
on
an
it, you know.
architect. That's what blows my mind, you come into.
No, I've been sending emails out with all kinds of
But
information.
nobody
Yeah,
gets them.
and that's
what
not
the
a good
school-
communication.
Yeah, that's not,
for us.
And the reason is,
I
Well,
think we
need to
discussed
get
it.
this.
I'm getting them.
Spencer isn't, Corey isn't, I'm not him, I don't know Ridge of you.
I'm getting them.
if you don't wanna do this, we can stop.
May I just give my opinion here? I've been here this is my 22nd year. And I was the one who put the master plan in, because we might need to have, you guys, since we moved over here, there was always talk about a field. There was talk about bus garage, locker rooms out at the field, a bigger egg shop. And I think we need a master plan so we know where things are gonna go. We don't have to do it today or tomorrow or next year, it could be 10 years down the road. But I don't want to have a facility where we have kids going out across the parking lot to go to an egg shop because we put something over here, over here, over here. We need to have some kind of organization of how things are set up, so we're not doing things that are inefficient and unsafe.
I think that's a great idea.
And we can get the architect and he can kind of guide us to where if we're gonna have an egg shop, what we can do if we do have an egg shop. What are the options if we choose to go that route? What are our options if we choose to get a powerhouse or a theater or whatever you guys decide that we need?
Yeah.
If we get the overall plan, then we don't have a lot of problems.
Right, I
When
like that idea.
When we built the, athletic facility, we had somebody come in 4 times to put concrete in. Now, is that efficient? I don't think it is. I think we need to put a master plan of where we wanna have a bus garage, where we wanna have an egg shop, what can we do with the powerhouse, and then go from there. And I think that's why we need to get an architect. I just don't want this piecemeal stuff here and here and here, and
That's
all
what
of
I
a
was
sudden.
worried about, was
agree,
this
but I
other
feel
piece,
like
that's what I was
as a-
trying to figure out.
As a board, we should say, okay, you want a CTE, you want this, but we as a board should sit down as a whole and come to agreement. This is our list, not Chris's list, not Lex's list, not Candy's list. As a board, we should sit down and say, this is what we want, and then go to the architect and say, this is what we need, this is what we're needing, and have him or her look at the grounds and say, this is what I would recommend. Not just go to the architect and say, hey, how much money?
We've done this.
No, we haven't, Spencer.
Yes,
We've
we
never
have,
done this.
Elaine. We've been
When?
talking about this for like
No, we've been
over
talking
a
about
year.
gym.
All this is gonna come up with a plan, or, you know, give us a little direction. We don't have to do any of it.
I'm fine with the plan thing if it's not horrendously, I don't know what does it cost?
Well, and if,
I try to get costs, they're all established differently, depending on the architect firm. But I do know the right architect will walk you through all these processes of, you know, following the construction, or taking the project out to bid, going through that process for you, walking through the project. The only reason that I am bringing it, only reason I put it on this agenda is if you as a board want options to construct next summer. If you don't want that option, that is yours.
And in a budgetary and a financial aspect, it'd be wonderful to have some sort of master plan and a plan going forward. So you as a board will know what are appropriate amounts to levy and for your constituents. So if there is a time where you need to increase or decrease or approve a budget that would include a building or a plan, in 5 years from now or 2 years from now, it would be nice for me as a business manager to be able to look and say, in our projection, we plan to build something, whatever you guys decide, in the next 2 or 3 years. Without any type of strategic plan as far as a financial, it's really hard for us as a board and as me as a business manager to make any projections on what we should do financially. And that's just my piece.
And the one thing with the master plan, I do like that, because then you can kind of see, I mean, yeah, when I was thinking, oh, now all of a sudden we're putting one here, you know, I was just like going
Right.
crazy, like, that is not what we were building or so my mind was, no.
And would the master plan work with the student enrollment numbers to show that projections too in the master plan or not? Would that be part of the master plan?
Well, the master plan would be something that they would look at, you know, your soil, your structures, and so forth. I mean, I just started the projections. I mean, I still need to go and find what's a good average here, because, you know, I don't know who's creating children when, and all that, so forth. These projections are very important when you're looking down the road. The thing that I think is that stands out to me the most, and, you know, I just noticed it these last 2 days, you have 27 seventh graders. And then you look at the classes ahead of them, and you will see, we have 2 classes of 24, we have 2 classes of 23. We're putting them in a situation where they're limited on the amount of hands-on courses. If you look at science, this is how many kids we have 27 seventh graders in one science class at a time, okay? Ridge, I went and looked at it, your class had 25 and they split it in half in science, so there could be more hands-on. I'm not bringing this to you so I can shove my plan down your throat.
Well,
I'm
no,
bringing
and then
this
the
to
egg
you
thing, you know.
Because we have some hands-on things that we need. And one of the things you had for me as an administrator, the goal, is to look at the culture and the climate. We don't have enough hands-on opportunity for our students. We're putting them all into a classroom that is supposed to be hands-on, and it's limited.
And that's
And
where
that
I
is-
agree, we have to look, you know, too, because maybe you need another science room and not egg. My thing with the egg is, I like egg, and I know you're an egg person, I like agriculture, we're an egg, that's what we do. But
there's
when we were
6
just told last year that, you know, we might be going remote egg. So
Yes,
then
but-
what do you, well, I guess you'd use it for a different room.
But Tommy, there's 16 career clusters.
No, I know that, I just was meaning, I was just
And
saying that's
if
what
we
was
can't,
brought last year.
it was brought to you, but I'm bringing it to you, there's a number of ways that we could fill that position on the alternative certificate. I started teaching here on an alternative certificate, and those are other options as well. What I'm saying is, our community is investing in industry, but we as a school district are putting our students in that situation. And that's the only reason I'm coming to you to hire an architect and start looking at what we can do for our students. If it ends up being something else that is CTE out in that building, that's fine. If we end up with 2 or 3 CTE options for our kids, I think that's great. And I'm not gonna keep it a secret that I am a very CTE passionate superintendent.
Right, and that's where I was trying to drive, you know, this has come from the community too, and that's why I brought this up, they want the powerhouse thing too. A lot of them, not everybody, I can't speak for everybody, but that's why I wanted to be clear, because that's not the direction we were
Absolutely.
going now.
Absolutely.
And the
that's
master
why-
plan, I do like that. My question about the architects, which I'm fine with getting an architect, you guys, my question is we were told before, this has been a while ago, and I don't know the prices, but we were told before, it's off, a lot of times off a percentage of what you're doing.
Right.
Well,
It is.
we have this master plan, I think we need to let people know, I mean, we wanna see it laid out and stuff, but oh my, you know, I don't know, when we looked at
And
that
I don't
list they
think
gave
that-
us, that was,
But
And I don't think you're-
the architect also does not charge you for a building that isn't built.
oh, I thought we were told that they
You
charged
can
a
have
percent
that
to dry your,
negotiated too
dry your,
in a
dry your
master
stuff.
plan. You can negotiate.
So you say they don't charge us for the drawings, that's the way, we were understanding percentages for the drawings.
A drawing
So if we
made
decide to
if
go
we
with that.
decide to build.
Right, but I meant to,
Not a
know, to
plan.
do the, you know.
Just the whole plan.
Yeah,
And
Because
if
it
you
takes
don't
their
wanna
time,
look
takes
at an
their time.
architect now,
no, I do, I'm just saying, do you get what I'm saying, I think we need
Yeah.
to make sure that we're not,
well, you know, and I proposed this to you the other day. We look at building a CTE complex, not just an ag
right, and that's
shop.
why I didn't want to, so that's
And we
why I
look
said
at it, and, you know, and let's say we do this, let's say my dream comes true.
Right, but that's why I just
Okay.
wanted to squash it
And we
right
move
away,
up-
just
we
so
move
you
up.
knew that that was not okay with me.
And then I
Not to
also-
be rude.
I also, yeah, that's fine. I mentioned to you also that we should look at possibly waiting on the gym to build in 2025, because all these other school districts are building these big, structures because of the ESSER funds. The ESSER funds expire in
Yeah.
2024.
Do we have any of those that are gonna expire?
Yes.
So I mean, can we use
We
some
have
of,
269,000.
I mean, are we gonna waste those if we don't?
We're not gonna waste them. We'll find something. We'll find something. Garbage can,
My comment,
storage unit, how's that?
my comment to you the other day when I met with you, and this is my point. So we just approved a strategic plan, and I said to you, I said, that was all public input. We as a board didn't even discuss, we need a CTE, we need a new gym. That's what bothers me about that, because we as a board should have sat down and said, this is what our school needs, and looked through them. Instead, we have this guy that just throws stuff in there, and we as a board have no input. And Spencer, I know you're for building something, and I'm not opposed to that, but you don't wanna just jump the gun and throw something up. I like Chuck's plan, but I don't think we should just do it in 1 year and be like, oh, we're
Talking
building.
about building, we're
something.
talking about getting a plan.
An architect, build a
What did I
plan.
just say? I said I like Chuck's plan, I don't think we should just throw something up, because that was what was in discussion
We're not
within a
building, we're
year.
just putting the plan together. And you don't have to like the plan, we can change the plan, but we gotta get the ball starting with a plan.
Right, and we as a board should say, this is what we need. Have top 5 things, we need a CTE, we need a gym, we need a new parking lot, whatever. And then go
We
forward.
just get stuck always getting anything rolling here.
I think we need a motion to move this forward one way or the other, to approve or not approve.
Well, I don't, what are we approving to look at,
Well,
to
that's
get
what
some
the motion
quotes,
needs
do you
to
have
be.
some quotes for us for
I think we should-
architects?
I
To
have no
approve
clue.
an architect, but doesn't say to pay the architect. Is that kind of?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say, is we don't know who these are and what they cost, I don't think we can, I don't think we could say, yeah, when we don't know who it is or what it costs.
That's the question I have, if we approve an
Right.
architect, you're still researching and getting bids.
We
correct?
have one architect, well, I can't get bids. I've already been through it, because they all charge differently,
Right,
but they will, the architect that I am recommending, and I'm recommending it on the basis of their involvement and experience in building education buildings, working with school districts, okay? They understand education buildings. And, the architect that I'm recommending would say they would do some bubble drawings to show what could be built. That doesn't have any specs, that is not even anything that you can even think about, it's just
So what's
the
their price?
for one conversation of what could potentially, they come out here, they look at your grounds. The reason I'm recommending, again, the architect is if you want to do something for next year, and you look at your student enrollment, I think there is a need, I feel there is a need.
So then, can they come to us and pitch to us and say, this is what we can do
For this price.
for this price?
That's what you want, that's another board meeting. And
I'd say
then
this
you
is
are out,
important enough
the window is closed for this coming year.
But I think the burning question is this architect you're recommending, what's their price?
That's a percentage on that one.
It
But I
is.
think we need to know those as a board, we can't just say, yeah,
So if.
I mean, we cannot do that.
They do, right, they do this plan,
Yeah,
and
we
then we
need a
decide
plan,
not
I
to do
mean,
anything, what do we pay them?
Right.
They did it for nothing then?
We
There's
need
gotta be two
actual
different, I mean, if
numbers.
you follow through,
Yeah.
there's a price, or if you just say.
We have to have
or-
numbers.
I mean, there's gotta be
Or
two
proof.
different pay charts or something to me, so.
Well, when you're contracting to hire, you're contracting to build a plan because you're going to build a plan. You know, they can't give you prices right now because of what a $200 or $2 million project looks like, because steel prices are changing every day.
Right, but I guess where I'm confused is if we're just trying to get a master plan and not say yes or no to a building after the master plan is developed, what's that cost us?
Right.
I have no idea.
Right.
Because they don't know, because you have to do soil sampling and surveying and so forth. They don't know what it takes to develop it.
We have enough soil samples, I mean, we have a history of soil samples from there to here to everywhere.
Tell them not to take soils.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have.
I
And
just say, Josh, you would know this as well, I mean, all this, we don't just say yes if we don't have a price. I mean, we have to have
Then,
some idea of what this number is, you know,
then
cause we've
you
heard
don't
so
make a
many.
motion and we go on to the next line item.
There's
that's
gotta
about how
be
it's
somebody,
gonna
some
be.
firm out
Right.
there
I
that
mean,
Yeah,
will build a master plan for a certain price,
Right.
isn't there? I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
I've given you a whole list of architects that I have been in contact with, and every one of them's different.
Right, but no one will do one just for a flat rate.
we
We can
probably
go
didn't
back,
talk about the masters and stuff.
we can go back and look at that, if that's
I
what
guess
you
that's
want.
what I wonder, maybe research how to start with the master plan, it's pretty obvious we're not ready to build next year. So,
My
that's-
guess is a master plan doesn't cost a whole lot different between firms. I bet if you look at the percentage they charge you based on the dollar value of the project, it's almost a new issue at that point, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't think that would be the most expensive part of it.
I have no idea, I know it costs about $10,000
No,
for an air conditioning project for Jim, for the architect, but they come and, on the job site while they were putting it in, they took care of the bidding process and so forth.
I buy and sell a lot of steel at my job, and we can't even get them to hold a price for tomorrow. Just an FYI, I can't even bid stuff 6 months out, cause I don't know where it'll be.
Okay,
What's in when
so if we're done with this, let's move on.
Well, I guess one quick question, do we want to direct, Andy to try to nail him to a solid price for just a master
Well,
plan?
that's what
Yeah.
would be
Or
the, they would,
research a
yeah.
firm that would do it? Does that make sense? Maybe it's not an architect, do you have experience, Tracy?
Yeah, I would just recommend for you something to consider, is you could set a budget tonight that Pandy can go back to contractors with, the architects, and say, we've set a budget here, we feel comfortable with. Can you give us this for that? Because otherwise you end up circling back to where you are. And so, in the past, what I've seen is the district will forward out a budget and say, this is what we're looking for in our master plan, this is what we're willing to pay for that. Is this something you can do? And that gives you the leverage, and it gives her the leverage.
Do you have a recommended price?
No,
That's the thing, you know, I mean, this number, they had like 4%, one had 2%, and,
Yeah.
but now we're talking about a master plan, which I think could be a little bit different ballgame, so.
We're talking about a budget for a master plan, a budget for the, what we're.
Absolutely, yeah. You shoot it out, and just in a perfect world, you say, you know, we've got $15,000, this is what we'd like for you to build up, draw for us within these boundaries so that we can make some solid decisions. And if they say, nope, it's gonna cost a lot more than that, you mark them off, and you go to the next one. And you may come back to the next meeting and say, hey, we didn't have anybody who would do it for this. But at least you started that
I
conversation.
remember we talked to some last year, and they were really wishy-washy. Some were like, do a set 6,000, then some say it's based on your building, and it could be 5 to 8%. They just don't like to get nailed down there, I guess, but that's a pretty good idea if we could just come up with a number that we can all live with.
And then I would email that number out to this list of architects to see what
Kinda saying
they're,
exactly what Tracy just said.
and see what they're willing to do.
I think that's smart.
So I think we're all kind of focused on a master plan more than a building at this present time.
Right, and okay with that, because you said like that, I'm not okay with just saying, yeah, let's go, but I have I don't think that's a smart thing as us as a school board to do, so.
And this gives you the leverage.
Right.
Because
Okay.
You set your ceiling and they're not setting it for you.
And then, are we gonna come back and talk about stuff that we want on it? Like, do we wanna have a swimming pool
I would think.
and a
whoever-
climbing tower and all that fun stuff?
If we find somebody that will do it for that price, we have a meeting with them as a board and kinda
Right.
tell them what we're looking for, the possibilities. It could be.
The focus is.
So is that the number we want?
I just made that up. Please don't take that.
I don't have a clue, that's on my wheelhouse, what that stuff costs.
To make them as little as possible.
Just try 5, and if they stay here, I don't know, that's.
Well, I think.
I don't,
I don't
our
think five.
audit, which is only 4 days on the job,
Let 'em
is
come back.
$15,000.
Wait,
The
what's-
audit's 15,000,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So, I mean, professional services,
they're expensive.
they're very expensive, and granted, that's 4 days in-house, there's a lot of work outside house too, but for professional services, just for our audit is 15,000, and they're the cheapest,
I gotta see something.
or they're one of the cheapest.
I would think if we set a price ceiling and it goes
I
right
can
through
send
emails, they're gonna
email
call
out.
back and say, we won't do it for that price, but we might, we'd consider doing it for this price. And then Dr. Pitt will have to say, I have to bring it back to my board.
I am looking for,
So
how about if I send an email out that I am looking for quotes on a master plan for the Wall School District property to include various buildings brought up by the Building Grounds Committee, or whichever. And then I see what kind of quote they give back to me.
Yeah, nothing in depth, we don't
Then we
even
don't-
just
'cause
spec
if we
out
set
the
a
air
price at
conditioning and.
X amount of dollars
yeah.
and it's way more than what they're willing to do it for, guess what they're gonna do it for?
Yeah.
Our price.
Right, that's.
Okay, and then
So-
they tell me what those costs are for that.
Right.
And I will pass it on to you as I get the information. It will be put on this file,
And then another agenda item for next month.
okay?
Is that a good consensus?
Yeah.
I don't think
Now
we
you
do.
need a motion with, oh no, you
No.
don't.
Do we need a motion?
Okay.
I think just a consensus.
We're done then. Thank
Okay.
you.
Item 16, elementary principal report. Chuck?
Enrollment, the elementary schools, right now I counted 104, a Big White I have 8, we have 8. We had a really productive in-service this year, the elementary grades, we finalized schedules, reviewed our reading instruction and how it's gonna look in the classroom this year. And, we finalized some presentations that we're gonna make available to the public. And I hope to have those on the website here within the next month. And we also had a great session on, that covered social and emotional learning. From that session, the staff chose to focus on 2 competency areas of self-management and self-awareness. self-management basically addresses teaching and helping students learn how to handle emotions and take care of situations without getting violent or overly loud, so to speak. And social awareness is also, we're hoping that we can teach the kids to recognize signals of their classmates and other people in the district or in the school, so that they can address situations appropriately. You know,
Not chewing with their mouth open.
well, but we're looking at you know how kids can say things that don't go over so well with their classmates, and then recognizing the students' look on their face, so that we can teach them to take some social cues and work differently. And in the elementary, we talked about ways that we can incorporate those skills in the regular lessons. So it could be just an added question about a character in a reading book, or the book that they're reading in reading class, or a social studies lesson. I just kind of concerned about adding an extra lesson to the day that we really don't have a lot of time to do, but we're still addressing the social emotional issues of that. And then the last thing I had was Dr. Pittman was talking about the comprehensive needs assessment, and our first meeting will be the morning of the 23rd, and Mr. Ragland and I will be visiting with each other about setting up a team and whether we're going to do it just in the elementary, middle school, which are Title I schools, or if we're going to look to go district-wide with the project. That's all I have for now. You guys have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 17, 6 through 12, principal report. Mr. Ragland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to comment, piggyback a little bit on what Mr. Sikora just said. I thought the professional development plan that the district had for last week was very well thought out, very well planned. I enjoyed listening to the young lady that came in and talked about the social emotional learning and aspects of working with kids. I thought she did a very good job. We were able to capitalize some other things as a staff, 6 through 12, to start looking at social emotional things, not only how they affect students, but how they affect staff, and how staff affect students when their social emotional situations are different. And so we had some time to talk about and do some introspective looks at ourselves, and in our follow-up meetings that will begin next week, we're going to start talking about some different things that we look at in ourselves as educators, because one of the most important things that we are role models. And so as being a role model, we have to understand how we're projecting things and how we're coming across as someone who's trying to educate students. And so I thought it was very well done. I was very appreciative of the pre-work that these guys did through the summer getting that set up. That was very well done. They spoke earlier about Teach Like a Champion. That's a series that I have used for a long time, and I'll be very honest with you, it's very, very basic. It's very, very simple. It's simply a way for all of us to begin to talk to each other in the very same language. When I evaluate and I talk about a slant or I talk about a star, it's important that they be able to understand what that is. And like I said, it's very, very basic. One of the precursors I gave them right away is, please understand, I'm not talking down to you. We're just trying to establish a culture here. We're all speaking the same language, so that when we're talking about the things that we need to do to further educate our students, that we have that ability. And we're not guessing, or we're not going, what's he talking about? I feel silly about asking those questions. So try to eliminate all of those kind of situations. And I've been very, very pleased. And as much fun as I had last week, I would say that the last 2 days have been more fun. I've really enjoyed watching the kids come in the building. I've really enjoyed trying to learn who they are and understand how they operate. And you guys have a lot of personalities here. It's a lot of fun. So
On the school board, or are you talking to kid?
I'm just gonna leave it right there, okay? But I have really enjoyed getting to know those kids a little bit, watching them from afar, and I look forward to building relationships with them to see things that go on here in the future. It's like I said, I've very much enjoyed it. I want to thank you for that opportunity. And with that, our enrollment, I believe the last time I looked, our middle school was at 78, and I think our high school was at 96. I could be wrong. I looked at those this afternoon, but I didn't write them down. So, and Dr. Pippin's right. We've got a big 7th grade class. Got a very big.
We got a couple of us having.
Yeah. If you have any questions for me.
One thing that Candy had sent out a deal, and it was talking about the critical race theory, or, you know, how they're putting that into schools, and I had went to that. And there were some other superintendents and administrators there, and they talked about different things with social and emotional learning, and they said that that is an avenue that they are using to put critical race theory in, and they were just kind of talking about how to be careful not to, I guess I'm not gonna say it as well as they did, but basically make everybody the same, like celebrating everybody's individual traits, and it was a really good seminar. I wish more of us had went to it, but it was really good. But they said that's one way that they're trying to slip that in there, is trying to bring everybody to the same level and not celebrate the individualities of each kid.
The best way I can answer that is, I got into the social emotional learning probably back in 2018, 2019, and I'm using the same programming that I had from there. I can also say that the young lady that was here, she's using a CASTLE program, which was also originated back in 17 and 18. So I don't know that
I think somebody had brought that up when they were talking in the meeting.
I've not heard that aspect before, but I know that those programs were developed long before the conversation around critical race theory was developed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just thought I'd let you guys know that's
Sure.
what
That's the first
that
time
was
I've
one
heard
of the
it.
things that they talked about, that social and emotional learning is trying to make everybody the same. There's not a celebration of individuality, and it was really interesting, and I'm not saying it as well as they could, obviously, but.
Well, the one thing I was looking at, the social emotional learning, was when I put the discipline or the consequences that were developmentally appropriate. And I've over the years, I've been criticized about how I've handled discipline. And one of the examples I have is, you know, how I deal with a kindergartner who cusses and swears is way different than how I deal with a 5th grader, because a kindergartner's coming from home where, you know, mom and dad are cussing and swearing all the time. But I would hope that a 5th grader would know better, that, you know, there's language you can use at home and language you can use at school, and sometimes they're not the same, so.
And I think they were referring more to classrooms. So in this classroom, everybody's gotta be the same, and in this classroom, not grade level wise.
No, but that's how we're approaching, is how are we treating other people, and you know, are we recognizing the signals that maybe somebody's not feeling well or happy, and what are we gonna do to
When they're
address
green,
that?
don't tease them.
What's that?
When they're looking green, don't tease them.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Ragland? Any more questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 18, business manager report. Amy?
I just wanted to let you know there was a slight increase in dental insurance rates. It's $1 and change for the single coverage and $2 and change for the family. So nothing significant, but there was a slight increase. Yeah, that's it. I just have other line items on the agenda, so.
All right. Any questions for Amy?
That was short.
Quick, short report.
Thanks.
Okay, superintendent report, Dr. Pittman.
All right, thank you. The first thing I have on my list is, board and administration professional development through Associated School Boards. Normally it's something I recommend in January when, before anybody starts calving and the harvest is done. There was some emails going out, from some superintendents to see if anybody wanted to share dates, like, Jim Obeck would come out to work with one school board in one town and go and work with the neighbor the next night and share transportation costs. And I don't know if that's of interest to you or what, and I still recommend some type of professional development this year, or I usually recommend January. Your thoughts?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I always think there's always things that are good. And we're
Yeah,
all for
if you
saving
could-
money, so if we
Right,
share.
if you can partner with local school, would be good.
Well, the pairing up would be in October, to put together a special board meeting in October. Or do you wanna just wait till January and see if there's some pairing up that can be done then?
January would be better, I think.
Okay, in the professional development options, what would you like to focus on? Board governance, fiscal responsibility, gavel training, what would you like to?
Is this something we can kinda, since we're not going to January, we can kinda like look, take on, or?
Yeah,
Cause there's a
absolutely.
whole bunch of them, right?
If you wanna wait till January,
I think so, right guys?
Yeah,
I will ask
I
again.
kinda like the law one.
School ball one, I will.
One under law isn't there, but maybe I'm wrong. And I don't
Well,
really care, we can talk about it later and look
I
at
did
it.
send it out, I signed up for the school law seminars, and that's one law seminar a month on different topics. And you guys could watch it on your own time. I don't even remember what's next Tuesday is a webinar, I can't remember what the subject matter is. There
Oh,
is
maybe
one-
that's what I was thinking.
There is one on cannabis.
Are they archived or not?
Yeah, you can watch it at a different time. If that's, so there's
That's the
already
one I
that
was talking
option, I
about, yeah.
recommend anytime you can learn about school law, but do you wanna talk about governance or just general board in January,
Yeah, I think so.
sometime like that? Okay.
When it gets closer, have it back in your report, pretty much.
You betcha, I will bring that up because I think it's very important. The portable storage containers, again, I
Excuse me.
have my recommendations. Ordering, we'll look at, if we get a used one, which isn't the end of the world, but it might be whichever color they have on hand.
Right.
But then the cost of whatever wrap, we look at a white wrap with the eagle on it.
I need to mention something, and Carolyn would be able to help answer that question. In the past, when we put the window coverings at the powerhouse, that was counted as a billboard, and we had to get a permit or something. So we might have to look in, if we get an eagle or something, we might have to look in to see if that counts as a billboard or something, so.
Whoever did that, I think did a really nice job.
Good heads up.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do that also, but.
I just remember that we had a phone call from Carolyn saying, that's a billboard or whatever the ordinance was.
Sign permit or something.
Window stickers?
And we will write, this is written into the ESSER fund. This is ESSER money.
The storage container.
Yes, as well as these garbage cans are also written into the ESSER. They have used the aluminum garbage cans out there. They have chained them to posts and stuff, and the wind blows hard enough to rip the handles off and damage them so the lid doesn't fit correctly. These would be a long-term investment. We can get them, originally Chris had priced them through an outfit in, Wisconsin, but I directed him back to Newell, to Boom Concrete, my alma mater, no, it's whatever. Anyway, they have 32-gallon concrete garbage cans that can withstand the elements out there and, be a long-term investment. they are considerably cheaper than getting them out of Wisconsin at $2,200.
That's that price or that's that?
From Newell,
It's 2,200.
and, yeah,
For how many of them?
9 of them,
9 for 2,200?
yes,
And that's from Newell, not Wisconsin.
Right.
that's
Okay.
from Newell. So if that's, yeah, any questions for me?
Do we need, have a motion to go ahead on the storage containers and the garbage cans, or?
I think
They're in the ESSER budget, unless there is a problem with going ahead on that, we'd like to.
You know, you just have to figure out if you want new or used on the portable storage containers, was that
Yes.
the question?
Well, we'll try to make the best option possible. If we can get, decent used ones and put the wrap on them,
Yeah.
we will. If it looks like the new ones are the option, or.
Just
what-
get white ones then,
Yeah.
don't even
Yeah.
have to wrap them, at least $3,400.
Right.
Yeah,
Plus,
so,
they're probably
and that's the
sealed
thing, I
better.
need to price wraps.
Right, but that's, I mean, I wouldn't buy a new thing, with a $3,400 wrap, or, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know if the wrap on a bus or
Right,
wrap
well,
on
that's
a.
what I'm saying, either new or no wrap or.
So we're
saying the wrap would be for the used ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have the A kids go out and paint it.
There you go.
They used to go out and paint stuff before.
So, we will try to make the best, look at, for the best option. If it is a used pink one, we'll put a wrap on it. And, yeah, and I will provide updates,
Okay, sounds good.
okay?
Any questions? Thank you.
Yep, and I'd like to thank Samra and Amy for putting together the board, files that you guys have access to. I hope that it would be a, board packet that is constantly being updated as we find information and, learning opportunities. So I think it's a great idea that both of them have worked very hard to put together, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, item 20, we don't have a need for executive session.
We have no
Anybody?
executive session.
Okay, item 21, other. Item 22, I'll adjourn the meeting.
On the money.
There we go.
Thanks, everyone.